A complete breakdown of Vanderbilt. No, we're not going to do that. The Tennessee-Alabama game with Chris Landry. I'm Dave Hooker. And wow, what a game. Hit that like, subscribe, and share button. We would greatly appreciate that. And it's brought to you by Owl's Nest Barbecue and Steve Ray's Midnight Oil. I'll tell you more about them here momentarily. So, Chris, let me begin with Tennessee's offense. If it wasn't bona fide, which it probably was, it certainly is now. I was incredibly impressed with how Tennessee continued to not only score points, but handle Will Anderson, who was on my Heisman ballot last year, and just really continue to be impressed. No longer surprised, Chris, but this offense is one of the best in the nation, period.
They have played 3 SEC teams, all ranked, and have punted 3 times.
Oh.
They are obviously moving the football well. They're scoring it well. They're balanced. They're causing a lot of what we call eye manipulation with the defense. But with their RPO, their tempo, their zone read stuff, they're getting defenses misaligned because you have to make a decision defensively. You have to decide what you're going to take away. And, you know, I was talking with doing another show, and I said, well, why didn't everybody do it? Well, because when you do it, schemes don't win. A good scheme with good players win. So not everybody has as many weapons that Tennessee has at receiver right now. So you have to choose. So Alabama, you choose that you're going to cheat towards Brew McCoy's way because he's been the best guy. Jalen Hyatt torches you, and you're cheating up with your safeties, and you got to defend the run. And I got to tell you, it was really impressive. Not only it's the speed, it's not only Hendon Hooker, all that's great. That's all true. But what people are not realizing is what they're doing schematically that Fergus. They ran a lot of split zone this week. They worked the tight ends across the middle of the field and then re-engaged them in the blocking game. So they had some success running it. They're manipulating Alabama safeties to move in. And then all of a sudden, boom, you've got a quick, easy split. There's nobody deep because, again, you have to make a decision. Defensively, you got to take some chances. You take away A or B. And you can't cover everything or everybody, particularly when they're running it as well as they're running it. A quarterback that's making good decisions, had an interception, had I would call it a half of a, at least until we know otherwise, half of a mesh fumble, but it's been mistake-free, decision pure, and playmaker abomination of defenses. They're just having a ton of success and on a lot of roll right now. So this is a very, very impressive offensive juggernaut that is going to be difficult to defend for all of those reasons. Well, you get this, Dave. Well, it's this, it's that. Folks, it is personnel, it is coaching, it is the combination of having a quarterback that can run it, that's confident. All of those things are falling into place. And it doesn't always happen. In fact, it rarely happens as good as it's happening. So enjoy it, because it's, not something that, okay, you stamp it and, like going to McDonald's, the burger's going to taste the same every time. It's not that way. It's not.
Well, I don't know which McDonald's you're going to, but they don't always.
Actually, I don't. So that's a bad example. Scratch that. We'll edit that out. We'll edit that out after the show.
Maybe you're thinking of the way that you're able to barbecue and smoke food. Which, yes. I'll tell you what, Owl's Nest Barbecue is the place to go with the rubs and the sauces. It's absolutely phenomenal. Owl's Nest Barbecue is so top notch. What I love about Owl's Nest Barbecue is they've got the knowledge to tell you what you need, so you don't just wander around. They've got the Green Mountain Grills that are fantastic. Hit the like, subscribe, and share button. Also, Steve Ray's Midnight Oil. There's nobody else that's allowed to work on my car, period. End of discussion. A proud Michelin distributor. Chris, this offensive line, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I thought it was going to be a C plus, B minus. I think when you I think when you move Darnell Wright to the right side, that was a really big risk after starting at left tackle last year. But they've had guys in Gerald Mincey and Jeremiah Crawford who have stepped in at various times and played well. What they did against LSU and not allowing sacks, Will Anderson just had 3 tackles. Whether that's scheme or whatever it might be, Chris, I've been absolutely blown away by this offensive line.
It's a combination. It's kind of like, here's how I would compare it. A secondary might play fairly well in coverage, but if they don't have to cover as long because the pass rush is good, the grades may look a little better, and you may, give more attaboys, and they're doing their job, but it's more about what the front's happening. I do think that this pass protection has been very good. Now, they don't have to do the ball comes out quickly. They do a good job again with eye manipulation. You've got to defend so many things that when you get the running game going, David, you can't just tee off on the pass game. This is not an offense that drop backs to a 7-step drop every snap. That's not what they do. They're running RPO. So it may be a run, it may be a pass. Well, you can't just get upfield and attack the passer and attack the passing game. They'll hand it off and they'll run it, and you're devoid of numbers to defend that. So it's a combination of they're doing a very good job to hold up in pass protection, and they've got a scheme and a tempo that just makes that really effective. I think they're in the same offense, comparatively speaking, though. They're playing better than last year's offensive line. There's no question about they allowed just 6 hurries in this game. I thought a big key was Alabama was going to have to crash the mesh point. So off the snap in certain cases, when they did, I thought that Tennessee held up very, very well, particularly Darnell Wright, who was really, really good. And Carvin, I don't think they allowed – I have to go back on my notes. When I charted, I don't think they allowed any pressures. I thought they were outstanding. And they made Will Anderson a non-factor for all the reasons that I mentioned. They optioned him some, and they did a good job protecting him. When he's got to set the edge in the run game, he's got to be concerned about the run. That's a good job of coaching preparation and neutralizing a great player, and in some cases just running away from him or getting the ball out before he can do any damage to you.
And I want to get to Tennessee's defense, and we knocked the defensive backs, but the blitz package that Tennessee showed against Alabama, man, Tim Banks may be as much the MVP because of the way this program is run as anybody on this entire football program. He's doing more with less, or tell me if I'm wrong, if you like the personnel a little bit better, but he's doing more with less than just about anybody in the SEC, in my opinion.
I think done a really good job as it relates to the secondary. Let's just kind of think about that for a second. They were without Jalen McCullough, of course. Top 2 cornerbacks, Haddon was a game-time decision, didn't play. Burrell is out for the season. So Slaughter went most of the way at safety, and Wesley Walker played some there and at the star position. And Deshaun Rucker and Christian Charles both had to come out of the game on the final possession. So they were playing, I think, at the end, if I remembered right in my notes with me. But Brandon Turnage, William Wright on the field.
Wow. And no offense to those guys, but you're not going to line up and say, "Hey, look at us" with those guys. No offense.
Yeah, and this wasn't mop up duty. So this is you got to come up with a play. It was the play up front, and it continues to be the play up front. Here's the thing to always look at. Forget about it if it's Tennessee or anybody, but the front, meaning the pass rush, affects the back end more than the back end affects the front. But they both help one another. If you got great cover guys, then the ability to cover longer gives you more time for the pass rush to get home to the quarterback. If you've got a great pass rush, then the corners in the entire secondary really has less time in which they have to cover. Any player is better. I played in the secondary. I was better when they had a good pass rush because I couldn't cover long. Okay, so it's and I think that they're doing a really good job of that. Now, look, I'm going to tell you that the defensive line did a pretty good job. Bryce Young, um, look, Jameer Gibbs is electric, and I thought they did a admirable job because I think Gibbs is special. But seven of his runs went for five. Only seven of his runs went for 5 yards or more. Okay, so the 17 attempts went for 26 yards. So I think the fact that they limited Alabama's explosive plays out of the run game hurt, and I think they had some success. Alabama did throwing the football, but there's no question that I think they're doing a really good job. I think the edge rushers have some talent. I don't think overall this is a great talent on defense, but I think they've got some experience, and some guys are playing pretty well. But I think that what they do is they're playing with their hair on fire. I mean, they're really attacking the line of scrimmage. They're very aggressive. Now, again, sometimes they could be out of position in doing that, but I think the attitude is we got to attack and we got to be aggressive, and we've got to be hyper aggressive because we don't feel we can cover long enough. We don't feel we can stop folks, so we have to attack and get upfield. And how do we do that? Well, we may not be able to beat guys one-on-one. So the last couple of games, they have run even more stunts than normal, where an end and a tackle will replace assignment, so they get better angles. It's as simple as that. And they're doing that in abundance, and I think it's helped them. They've been really effective. And look, you don't just run it. It's a lot of timing. I mean, I'm going to tell you what it's like. You ever go into a mall where they have that, that door that's revolving and you got to get in before it gets hit, and the old ladies that have the bag and it gets knocked, they caught it. It's running a stunt is like trying to jump into one of those things really quickly and not getting touched from the thing hitting you on the backside. And you've got two people doing it simultaneously. So it is not easy to do. It's a fundamental part of what you need to get done, and they're doing it very, very effectively and causing a lot of havoc.
Well, and you have to say this too. Tennessee had a monumental win against Florida, and that's a team that is in rebuilding mode. LSU was in rebuilding mode. You had an off week after the Florida win. You beat Alabama, and then you have Tennessee Martin. It just seems like outside of the program that things are breaking the schedule. The teams are breaking Tennessee's way. And I don't want to go down this road because we're only halfway through the season. But this is the first time where it really kind of feels like 1998, where they got a ton of breaks. Now, players don't like to hear that, Chris, but they did get a ton of breaks that season, also known as Clint Sterner. But this feels like they're getting an awful lot of breaks where they could at least overachieve. I'm not saying that means a national championship, but it feels like they could overachieve because of the breaks in part.
Look, I think it has a lot to do with the success, and it's a chicken egg thing with success and confidence. We focus obviously here on a lot of Tennessee, but I use different analogies. I'm sitting there watching the New York Jets and studying them on tape. Now, this is a team that played pretty well against Miami down to their third quarterback and end up having to run wild card with the fourth guy because of injury. And then you look, they only won that game because the Dolphins were discombobulated, but there was a lot of confidence and they did some good things. Now they're lining up and beating Green Bay, and they're just that there's something about it when you start to get confidence. You start to believe that you're that good and you are better than maybe what you are, and all those things about, that take place. You build on that. Now it's what you do with it. So from Tennessee's standpoint, it's, you know what? You could look back and we do this and explain it, Pitt and Florida and all those things. They're catching people at the right time, but they're also playing with a lot of confidence. And you look back on most teams, I think most recently, the 2019 LSU team, that was just dominating against, they beat Alabama in a close game. They beat Georgia. They just destroyed Oklahoma, and Clemson won the national title. Let's remind folks, there was a key third down play to put Texas to bed in the early part of the season. Well, that might have gone a different way that year. Tom Herman coached Texas. I mean, it takes some of that sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily reflects how good you are or not. But sometimes it gets you playing in the pace in which you play and the style. Look, it comes down to this, and I do think it is another benefit that they don't line up and play a really good, a decent SEC team this week, because a lot of emotion was put into this game. So if they don't play well, if there is a hangover, it's not going to cost them against UT Martin. And they'll have a week to kind of settle in and get ready for the Kentucky Georgia finish. And then look, we're all over again. It'll be on the road. There'll be a different challenge. That's what it's about. Dave, you ever notice what a big game is? The minute you win a big game, the next game becomes big. Not literally this week, but I mean, it's like, well, when you're all of a sudden got lofty rankings and expectations, it's a big game. Tennessee, Kentucky's going to be a big game. Why? Because Tennessee's going to be ranked high and a lot of expectations. And now all of a sudden, you're the big favorite. And Kentucky, who can't beat you, like Tennessee can't beat Alabama. Well, Kentucky can't beat Tennessee, right? Well, you're going to be in that same situation, against Kentucky. And how do you deal with that? That's the thing about being successful. It brings about more difficult challenges week in and week out through the course of the season. It's going to be fun to see how the Vols handle it. We know what they are offensively. We know what they are and are not on defense. Be interesting to see how they're able to handle it, how they're able to adjust it, because there's no question that the one thing, despite all the big playability, Dave, is that Tennessee's playing smart football and clean football. There's not a ton of mistakes, relatively speaking. Look at Alabama. I mean, the gold standard for college football in modern history, the mistakes that they are making consistently week in and week out this year, that's alarming and problematic. And you asked me last week if it's fixable. And I think some of it is, but it's not getting fixed, or maybe it's not fixable. Some of it maybe Tennessee's not making those mistakes. So it's a clean game. I do think the fumble, the Dallas Turner fumble, the mesh point fumble, there's an example. You play a clean game, Dave, and that game right there, I thought Tennessee's going to lose this game. They're going to lose this game. The whole, pardon the pun, tide has changed. And yet, so you play a clean game, one mistake, boom, that's it. And they made more than one mistake. I don't mean that, but they're playing clean ball. So in addition to making big plays, making mistakes, games are lost more than they're won. And for the most part, Tennessee's not playing mistake football that costs you games. And oh, by the way, they're making explosive plays. They're not punting, as I mentioned. I mean, they've got it going. What I'm curious to see is if their rhythm is broken a little bit, can they win another way against a really good team? That's what's going to be the challenge here as we finish up the rest of the season. Kentucky, Georgia, I'm not, Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt are not that good, but you don't want to play dumb football and turn it over 4 times all of a sudden. Then the whole narrative changes.
You're right. He's Chris Landry. Go to LandryFootball.com. Know more about football than any of your friends. I'm Dave Hooker, brought to you by Owl's Nest Barbecue and Seabray's Midnight Oil, a proud Michelin distributor. He's Chris Landry. I'm Dave Hooker. We'll talk to you next time. Chalk Talk, presentation of Off the Hook Sports.